Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I am going to share my favorite role-playing game releases which I reviewed in 2023. Now, keep in mind, this is not a countdown, so I'm not counting down to the best. These are all of my favorites. Now, not all of these releases came out in 2023 either, but I did review them in 2023. Now, the order I'm going to present these are actually in the order that the reviews appeared. Now, lastly, I also want to point out that there are some of the usual suspects that you normally see me do a lot of reviews for that aren't present. And the reason behind that is, unfortunately, I was trying to bring in some new reviewers to the Gaming Gang who are going to tackle tabletop role-playing games. In fact, one of them was going to start shooting review videos, and none of them came through, unfortunately. Thankfully, I do have some of the role-playing game items that I sent out for videos to be shot of on their way back to me. So 2024, starting tomorrow, is going to see a lot of role-playing game reviews from yours truly, as well as Sammy Uhas, who does our written reviews over on thegaminggang.com. All right, so I'm going to talk about each of these releases and share with you why I think these stand out, what makes them nearly essential to add to your tabletop role-playing game collection. All right, so let's get started with the first entry from Kobold Press, and I'm talking about Tome of Beasts, Volume 3. So I happen to be a sucker for bestiaries in the first place, and this contains over 400 unique creatures, monsters, NPCs, and they are so well done. I say it all the time. In my opinion, some of the best third-party content for 5e Dungeons & Dragons is being released from Kobold Press, and Tome of Beasts Volume 3 is no exception to that. It is so well done. There are a lot of really fun and unique creatures that are in this volume. So if you are running 5e D&D and you're on the lookout for new monsters, which most dungeon masters usually are, you really want to give a peek to Tome of Beasts Volume 3. So we're going to stick with my friends over at Kobold Press and talk about the Book of Ebon Tides. So if you follow the Gaming Gang, you know I am a huge fan of the default setting for Kobold Press, and it is Midgard. And it's a high fantasy setting, but it also has a bit of a dark fairy tale vibe to it, which I really like. It's not a grim dark setting by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a little dark and twisted at times. And Book of Ebon Tides actually goes into detail about the Shadow Realm. So it is a land of fae, and there are some really unique locations. There's a very cool gazetteer in here, really cool NPCs as well. So definitely give this a peek if you are looking to bring more of a dark fae vibe to the proceedings of your D&D adventures. So let's talk a little bit about Pathfinder, because one of my favorite releases this past year for Pathfinder 2nd Edition is the Treasure Vault. Yes, if people like bestiaries, they also really like magic item compendiums, and this is loaded with plenty of new gear and magic items for your player characters. And players just love more and more goodies that make them stand out from everybody else in the world of Pathfinder. And I gotta say, the Treasure Vault is just chock full of really cool and interesting items that your players are going to dig checking out. So once again, this is the Treasure Vault for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Now, let's talk a little bit about Dungeon Crawl Classics and the box set for The Dying Earth, because this really, really captures the feel of the Jack Vance Dying Earth stories. It is so well done. And if you're a fan of Dungeon Crawl Classics, this is a must-have to bring aspects of Dying Earth to your game table or set your adventuring in the Dying Earth. Now, I happen to be a big fan of Jack Vance stories, and if you're not overly familiar with the Dying Earth, it is sword and sorcery, and it's a little odd. And one of the really cool aspects of the Jack Vance tales, most of them, is the protagonists tend to be anti-heroes. They are not good people at all. I'm not saying every story, but the vast majority are rather villainous or at least black-hearted. And that comes through in this box set. Really, really well done. And I should also point out, Goodman Games has a bunch of Dungeon Crawl Classics Dying Earth adventures as well. So this is Dying Earth for Dungeon Crawl Classics from Goodman Games. So if you follow the gaming gang, you know that my role-playing game that I have been running for decades is Call of Cthulhu. And I love me my Call of Cthulhu. And Chaosium Inc. released a fantastic Call of Cthulhu supplement this year, and it is Cults of Cthulhu. And I have to ask, what took you guys so long? So what you'll find in here are examples of various different Cthulhu cults, as well as information on how to create your own. So one of the things that I really like about this book too is that it's set in various different eras. So you get examples of these cults ranging from pre-20th century all the way to the modern day. And I really, really love that. And production quality, top-notch throughout this book. Really, really enjoyed reading this as well. This is a fun read for keepers out there. So if you've ever wanted to kind of sprinkle in your own cult into Call of Cthulhu, this is your way to do it. So this is Cults of Cthulhu for Call of Cthulhu from Chaosium Inc. Going back to my friends over at Kobold Press, and another look into the world of Midgard is Zobeck, the Clockwork City. And this is not only a gazetteer, which goes into a lot of detail about the free city of Zobeck, it also contains a bunch of adventures, important NPCs. This has got it all. And once again, you don't have to put this into the world of Midgard. You can drop this into your own homebrew fantasy world for 5e D&D, or even Forgotten Realms if you want to. But this is how city books should be put together for fantasy role-playing games, because there is a lot going on in the free city of Zobeck, and there are over a dozen adventures of various levels for you to utilize as well. Now, I have to point out, Chaosium Inc. released a role-playing game based on a series of novels that I had never read. I was familiar with, but I had never read them. And of course, I am talking about Rivers of London, which is an urban fantasy series of novels from, I want to say the author's name is Ben Abramovich. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. And I have to say, knowing very little about this series of books, I was so impressed by this core rule book and how I really felt I had a handle on the whole gist of this series just by reading this core rulebook. I should also point out that this is probably the best job I have ever seen Chaosium Inc. do as far as introducing a role-playing game to newcomers to the hobby. So this is a game that you don't have to be well-versed in not only Rivers of London, you don't even have to be well-versed in role-playing games in order to get stuck in both as a player and a game master. Really high marks for Rivers of London from Chaosium Inc. Now, this past year, I actually had an opportunity to review the core rulebook for the granddaddy of all cyberpunk role-playing games. That's right, the latest edition is Cyberpunk RED from Talsorian Games. And wow, I am absolutely blown away by what's in this book. There is just so much really cool cyberpunk content in here. And I will point out, this is probably not the best presented role-playing game core book I have ever seen. It is a bit of a mishmash in some ways, but I'll tell you what, there is so much great content in here. It is absolutely worth it to have to delve a little bit deeper into this core rulebook than you normally would with most role-playing games. But if you play, say, Cyberpunk 2077, and you'd like to find out where did all that cool stuff come from, all right here. This is such a cool role-playing game. If I were going to run anything, even remotely related to the cyberpunk genre, I'd be busting out Cyberpunk RED from Talsorian Games. So one of the best starter sets to ever hit the market came out this past year, and it is from my friends over at Chaosium Inc., and I am talking about the Pendragon starter set, which is from the late, great Greg Stafford. Now, I would have thought that RuneQuest in the world of Glorantha would have been what Greg Stafford felt was his crowning achievement in tabletop role-playing games, but actually that wasn't the case. It was actually Pendragon, which he felt was his greatest contribution to the hobby. And I'll tell you what, this is one fantastic starter set. It is a unique style of play. There are unique mechanics. Yes, it is basic role-playing to an extent, but as far as the world of Arthurian legend, this is the role-playing game to pick up. Now, I'm really excited that 2024 is supposed to be bringing us the core rulebook for Pendragon, and I am pumped to check that out. And I have to say, this starter set is just jam-packed with content as well. That's something that Chaosium Inc. is really well known for as far as their starter sets. This isn't just something that you're going to play for a couple of hours and then now you're looking to pick up some adventures. There's a lot of content in this, and you get a lot of value for your money. So this has got to be pretty much my favorite starter set of 2023, and it is Pendragon from Chaosium Inc. Let's talk about another box set, but this is not a starter set. This is actually the core rules for the game, and it is from my friends over at Free League Publishing, and I am talking about Dragonbane, and what a blast this game is going to be. Now, this is a new edition of a classic Swedish role-playing game, which came out in around, if I remember correctly, 1982. And it is just so much fun. One thing that Dragonbane really pulls off well is that it's exciting, it's entertaining, and it's a little tongue-in-cheek. Now, I don't want to insinuate that this is a comedic role-playing game by any stretch of the imagination. It is not. It is a classic-styled fantasy role-playing game. But it doesn't take itself too seriously or overly serious. And this box is just packed with content. I was just talking about what a great value the Pendragon starter set is. So is this box set for Dragonbane from Free League Publishing. Another release from Free League Publishing is Pirate BORG. I have to say, out of all the BORG releases that have come out, such as Mirkborg, or Morkborg, as people like to refer to it as, or Cyborg, which I liked, my favorite of the whole bunch is Pirate BORG. If you are looking for a role-playing game that captures the essence of Pirates of the Caribbean, this is it. It really is. Very rules light, very easy to get into. I love the sandbox kind of campaign that's included in this. You will get loads and loads of gameplay out of, and it's not hundreds of pages long either, but really, really dug this. I love the presentation. I think the artwork throughout is excellent. And one thing that I can say that I can't say for a lot of the art punk sort of releases, the presentation never gets in the way of understanding the content on the page. That is not the case with far too many of the BORG releases or Merkberg related third-party content out there. It's like the game comes second. That's not the case with Pirate BORG. Really, really highly recommend this. So you already know I'm a big fan of Call of Cthulhu. I'm a big fan of Lovecraftian mythos role-playing in general. And I have to say, the fine folks over at Arc Dream Publishing really outdid themselves this year because they released a new edition of Delta Green, The Conspiracy. So if you're not familiar with Delta Green, I like to refer to it as the X-Files, but R-rated, because there are some really creepy and gruesome things going on in many of the Delta Green adventures. And what Delta Green is it is a Lovecraftian role-playing game which is filled with conspiracy. So the players take on the roles normally of government agents who are sent out to investigate all these crazy goings on. And of course, they keep peeling back one layer to find another layer, to find another layer. And there's always just wild stuff going on. Now, what the conspiracy is this is actually an update of the original Delta Green, which when Delta Green first came out in the 1990s, it was a supplement for Call of Cthulhu. Now it's its own standalone role-playing game. But this is a setting book which takes you back into Delta Green in the 1990s. And there is so much really wild and bizarre stuff going on that not only is this really useful for game masters out there running Delta Green, especially if they're looking to run Delta Green during that original period of the 1990s, this is also a really entertaining read overall. So huge kudos to Arc Dream Publishing and this new edition of Delta Green, The Conspiracy. So let's talk about Kobold Press once again, because we've got another setting release for Midgard, and it is Wastes of Chaos. And there is a lot of really cool stuff going on in the Wastes of Chaos. And one of the things that I really like best about this book is that, yes, it is set in Midgard, but these wastes can be located anywhere. So if you want to include them in your homebrew, or if you want to put them into a published D&D setting, you easily can. And this is really cool too, because there's a bit of a pulp vibe to the goings on, which I really, really do like. as well. So more Midgard goodness for 5e D&D from my friends over at Kobold Press. Let's go back to Free League Publishing again, because if you like rules light horror role-playing games, then you most certainly need to check out Vaesen if you have not already. And this past year saw an adventure campaign, the first true adventure campaign, come out for Vaesen. And yes, I am talking about The Lost Mountain Saga. The Lost Mountain Saga is based on an actual play podcast. And I have got to say that this is my favorite adventure release to date for Vaesen. And really, really well done. I like how the stories do tie together, because we have seen some adventure releases in the past where it's sort of implied that, well, if you wanted to, you could tie them together as a campaign, but really they come across more like Monster of the Week adventures. That is not the case with the Lost Mountain Saga. The adventures are really good. I like the underlying thread that ties them all together. And truth be told, they're pretty dark. Really bad things can happen if the player characters are not successful. So I like that quite a lot as well. So this is the Lost Mountain Saga for Vaesen from Free League Publishing. Now, I usually have a good number of reviews of Cubicle 7 Entertainment releases, which unfortunately this year I didn't have as many. Now, I will point out, I did have somebody who was going to be reviewing more WIFRIP stuff, and they did not come through, but there was just an issue not getting review copies of stuff, which thankfully is now in the rearview mirror. And I got to say, one of the most recent releases from Cubicle 7 Entertainment that really blew my socks off is Warhammer 40K Imperium Maledictum. So this is actually the second Warhammer 40K role-playing game system from Cubicle 7 Entertainment. And this ties more into their Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay system. So this is a percentile system. If you are familiar with the 4th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, then you will slip right on into this role-playing game. Now, some of the things I really like about this, and I'm the first to admit, I'm not all that well-versed, especially with modern Warhammer 40K, but I was very impressed by how much content is in here that once I got stuck in, I was like, you know what? I got a really good feel for Warhammer 40K these days. I also appreciate the fact that the player characters are going to be lower power level. So you're not going to see players taking on the roles of Space Marines or anything like that. I love the fact that the players also have patrons that are kind of like they're quest givers, but they're also resources for the player characters to utilize. I thought that was kind of cool. And I also love the fact that the players and the game master together create these patrons. I love that fact that the players are actually involved in the creation of the person that they're going to rely on probably most outside of their team. So I like that quite a bit. There is a lot of content to this, and I can tell you right now, Cubicle 7 Entertainment has big plans for this role-playing game system. So once again, this is Warhammer 40K Imperium Maledictum from Cubicle 7 Entertainment. So remember, I was talking about role-playing games that did not come out in 2023 that I had an opportunity to check out for the first time and to review. And one which I was really impressed with is the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition from Pinnacle Entertainment Group. Now, yes, I had heard a lot of good things about Savage Worlds over the years. And of course, this is the most recent edition, which actually this print run did come out in 2023. So there is that. But after reading through this and doing my review of it, I can really see why so many people gravitate to Savage Worlds as far as being a genreless system that they can plug into just about anything. I also happen to have reviewed Deadlands: The Weird West, which is the latest edition of Deadlands, which is built for Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. But I really, really dug this core rulebook, and I can certainly recommend to anyone who's out there looking for a bit of a rules light approach to a genreless setting where they can pretty much plug in anything they want, or if they're looking for a genreless system that has tons and tons of settings available for, then you really, really ought to look for Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. It is excellent. I really enjoyed reading through this, and it's got enough crunch that it's going to satisfy people who are looking for a tactical role-playing game experience, while also being light enough rules-wide so people won't feel like they're being overloaded with rules options and variants. So that is Savage Worlds Adventure Edition from Pinnacle Entertainment Group. Now, there is a new series of RuneQuest books that came out from Chaosium Inc. It started this past year. We've got a few volumes out already, and it is a look into the pantheons of RuneQuest. It is Cults of RuneQuest, and I am talking about both the Lightbringers as well as the Earth Goddesses. And these books are fantastic. Artwork throughout, incredible. The amount of content that's packed into 126 to 140 pages or so is amazing. These are the sorts of books that other fantasy role-playing game publishers should look to create when they're creating books filled with various different pantheons and deities. There is so much useful content in each of these volumes. I am so excited for this series. And if you have any interest in RuneQuest, you really owe it to yourself to pick these up. They are that good. They're also very interesting to read. All right, my final entry is a very recent release, and it is Pathfinder Remastered from Paizo Inc. So yes, we have got the player core as well as the GM core. Now, if you followed the gaming gang for any time at all, you know I really enjoy Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I think it's a standout role-playing game, and I think that the 3-action economy really sets it apart from just about any other fantasy role-playing game out there. Now, having said that, the 2nd edition isn't necessarily the easiest for newcomers to the hobby, or even just newcomers to Pathfinder, to wrap their heads around. Well, now we have the Remastered Edition. Now, these are the first 2 releases in the line. We also have a Bestiary, a Monster Core, which is coming out in March, I do believe. And then this summer, we'll see the Player Core 2 arrive. And yes, one of the big deals with the core books now is that all reference to the Dungeons and Dragons SRD are gone. So this is now part of the Orc license, not the open game license. But still, mainly what's going on in here is that the presentation for Pathfinder has been cleaned up, and it's far, far easier for newcomers to get involved in what I feel is one of the best crunchy fantasy role-playing games out there. So I'm wrapping up my favorites of 2023 with Pathfinder Remastered. All right, of course, if you want to get closer looks or deeper dives into any of these releases that I've been talking about, by all means, look them up here on the channel because I have video reviews for each and every one of these. All right, thank you very much for taking time out to check out my favorite role-playing game releases, which I got to review in 2023. Of course, I'm releasing this on New Year's Eve, so Happy New Year to all of you out there. Hopefully you'll be joining me in 2024 for a lot more tabletop gaming content. But if you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this list of my favorites, it'll also tell you when I stream my live show, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you're not going to find here on the channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, Happy New Year to all of you. I'm Jeff McAleer, and until I see you next time, here's hoping you all get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.